Hello, welcome to the morning news. Our top story today takes us to Havana, where the leftist FARC rebels and the Colombian government have reached a historic agreement. For the first time since the peace talks began in November 2012, the government has agreed to a major de-escalation of the conflict. The move marks a significant step in the process to end 51 years of a civil war that has left over 220,000 people dead and other victims. The agreement comes following FARC's recent announcement of a one-month unilateral ceasefire starting July the 20th.
We are going to monitor what we agreed today. And in 4 months from today, depending on the FARC compliance, I'll take the decision as to whether to continue the process or not.
Both parts in the peace talks will revisit the agreement in 4 months. The landmark agreement seeks to improve negotiations between the government and the Revolutionary Armed Force of Colombia, the country's largest rebel force, after talks had shown signs of stalling. The FARC leader, Ivan Marquez, praised the agreement.
Process.
Another top story is ongoing in Mexico. The most powerful drug lord in the world, Mexican Joaquin El Chapo Guzman, has once again escaped prison. Our correspondent Clayton Khan has the story. Clayton?
Saturday evening and into early Sunday morning, Joaquin El Chapo Guzman, one of Mexico's most well-known drug bosses, escaped from the Altiplano maximum security prison outside of Mexico City, prompting authorities to initiate a massive countrywide manhunt. Now, the leader of the Sinaloa cartel, who was detained last year, reportedly escaped through a tunnel in the shower area of the cell that stretches for nearly a mile to a construction site area. Now, in a government press conference this morning, the country's security chief, Alejandro Rubiro, affirmed that El Chapo was last seen at around 8 p.m. on Saturday night in his cell. Now, this is the second major jailbreak by the cartel leader in 15 years, escaping in 2001 from a maximum security prison in the state of Jalisco. Mexico's interior minister and other cabinet members who had just arrived with the president Enrique Peña Nieto to France on a diplomatic trip are reportedly returning to Mexico to attend to the security breach. Now, this is a major embarrassment for the administration of Peña Nieto, which has publicized greatly its strategy of capturing major drug cartel bosses, especially the capture of El Chapo last year, who was at the time considered to be the most wanted man in the world. This is Clayton Khan reporting for Telesur here in Mexico City.
The circumstances of El Chapo's escape are highly dubious. He left one of Mexico's most secure prisons near the capital through a mile-long tunnel that was allegedly built in 9 months. It was well illuminated and had a ventilation. He had been arrested in mysterious circumstances as well in February 2014. Sources close to the cartel told Telesur Guzman is celebrating his escape in Sinaloa, near Mexico City.
We have in the Mexico's Attorney General Office, in the Criminal Investigation Agency, 30 people that have worked in the prison that are now giving their testimonies in order to see what their legal situation will be and what more elements we can obtain.
And Pope Francis has left Paraguay for Rome. He ended a week-long visit to South America, where he drew attention to the plight of the poor and marginalized. After a visit that also included Ecuador and Bolivia, the Pope and his delegation left from Paraguay's capital of Asunción. Throughout his tour, he repeatedly spoke out against poverty, inequality, and corruption. He entered various homes in the slum of Paraguay's capital and blessed the families living there. Pope Francis will return to Latin America and the United States in September. Emergency officials in a number of Caribbean islands are renovating hurricane shelters and increase their readiness to respond to future disasters. Our correspondent explains how shelters play an important role in communities across the islands, as they are the places people turn to.
In the early 1990s, Eastern Caribbean nations generally had limited levels of preparedness and had only rudimentary disaster response capability. The 2000s brought improved disaster preparedness and management. It included retrofitting public buildings for use as hurricane shelters. Many of St. Lucia's hurricane shelters are schools, and as part of renovations, the National Emergency Management Organization is ensuring the shelters have access to water post-disaster. One of the most recent projects involved a rainwater harvesting system at a hurricane shelter in the community of Deriso.
From since 1994, after the tropical storm Debbie, you find the Wasco infrastructure were damaged, or some of them were destroyed, pipes and intakes, and it poses a serious problem to the constituency.
The head of St. Lucia's Emergency Management Organization says one of the most important aspects of this project is the fact that residents can replicate components of it at their homes, thus building community resilience.
We will engage persons in training on climate change adaptation, because really and truly we have these here, but we want it to be a model for community persons to emulate, to have that type of system at their own homes, at the household level. So we would be having sessions on that and other, just basic climate change adaptation techniques that persons can adapt at the household level.
Climate vulnerability and resilience are now playing major roles in disaster management. Emergency officials in St. Lucia say building the capacity of emergency shelters and communities will help preserve lives in times of disaster. The ongoing program hopes to improve adaptation to the impact of climate change. Alison Kentish, Telesur, St. Lucia.
And now let's take a look at world news. The main stories in Brussels, where Greece has reached a deal with its creditors.
Eurozone leaders managed to reach a deal with Greece only hours ago. The agreement has paved the way to negotiate a third bailout to keep the near-bankrupt country in the Eurozone. But the terms imposed by international lenders led by Germany may put more pressure on leftist Prime Minister Alexis Tsipras, fracture the government and cross an outcry on Greece. In fact, people interviewed in the street of Athens expressed mixed feelings.
Relief. I feel relief because we had to have a deal. We couldn't help it. It would be a big mistake to go to the drachma. As the Americans say, we would go down.
My first impression is that Greeks will not tolerate humiliation. We will be united, that's it.
I'm disappointed. They were very dynamic at first. We had a glimmer of hope. We were prepared for something bad to happen, and then the worst happened. This is what most people think. Listen, it is some sort of victory, but it is a Pyrrhic victory because the measures are very strict.
Greece has secured debt restructuring and medium-term financing in a growth package worth 35 billion euros in a deal with its creditors that will allow the country to stay in the euro, Prime Minister Alexis Tsipras said in Brussels on Monday. The Greek Prime Minister Alexis Tsipras, elected 5 months ago to end 5 years of suffocating austerity, but in the end was forced to make tough decisions. He has, however, achieved a conditional agreement to receive just over $95 billion over 3 years. The Greek parliament has to approve the deal.
Thank you. We spent, before spending 17 hours, I think it was, in the summit, we spent 14 hours in the Eurogroup going through all the issues that were on the table. And as my colleagues have already said, trust was a very key issue. But also we worked very hard on a lot of issues regarding the reforms, the fiscal situation, the debt problems, financing needs, etc. And we were able to agree on a lot of these issues, putting in an extra effort on all sides to get Greece back on track.
Saudi-led air raids killed 21 civilians in Yemen's capital Sana'a on Monday. This according to relatives of victims and medics. The air raids took place just 2 days after the start of a UN-brokered humanitarian truce Saudi Arabia does not recognize. The United Nations had announced a week-long truce to deliver urgent humanitarian aid to over 80% of the Yemeni population. Since March 26, when the airstrikes began, over 3,000 people have been killed. Most are said to be civilians.
They killed my brother and my sister and her son. This is tragic. How is any of this their fault? They killed my brother's wife and his son. This is tragic. How is this the children's fault?
A suicide car bomb near a U.S. military base has killed at least 26 people and wounded 9 in southeastern Afghanistan. No U.S. military personnel were injured in the attack. The wounded were rushed to hospitals. The attack took place close to a checkpoint on the outskirts of the city of Kos, where several cars have been stopped.
And now to Toronto, where the 17th Pan American Games were kicked off Friday. This is the third largest multi-sport event in the world after the Olympics and the Asian Games. It brings together thousands of athletes from throughout the Americas in 36 different sports. Cuba will attempt to retain the usual second place in the event. They excel in boxing, judo, athletics, wrestling, and taekwondo. They have sent various Olympic medalists, including wrestler Mijail Lopez, judo expert Idalis Ortiz, and boxer Roniel Iglesias. More on these on our website, telesurtv.net/English. Thanks for watching and have a good day.